You know, one of the most underdeveloped capacities in people is their ability to discern what's really going on beneath the surface of things. Not just what is said, but what is meant. Not just what appears, but what is. We live in a world saturated with signals, words, gestures, atmospheres, energies, and most people are drowning in them without a clue. They're misled, deceived, or simply unaware. And then they wonder why life feels confusing, chaotic, overwhelming. But there's something remarkable. The human spirit is built with the potential to perceive more accurately than most people ever imagine. It's like having a compass, but you've never learned how to read it. Discerning of spirits, you could call it, or simply the art of perceiving truth from falsehood, substance from shadow, clarity from confusion. Now here's the problem. If you don't cultivate discernment, you'll pay for it. You'll follow the wrong people. You'll attach yourself to destructive ideologies. You'll waste years of your life in relationships and ventures that corrode your soul. That's the price of inaccuracy in spiritual perception. It's not just some mystical failing, it's practical ruin. So the real question becomes, how do you train your perception? How do you refine the antenna of your soul so that you can distinguish between what empowers and what enslaves? Because perception is not passive. It's an act of responsibility. When you start taking responsibility for your inner perception, everything changes. You notice when a word carries truth and when it's a mask. You sense the difference between genuine authority and manipulative dominance. You feel the quiet weight of wisdom and you recoil at the hollow clamor of lies. And in that process, you become sharper, stronger, less easily manipulated. This is not a game, it's survival. It's alignment. It's the difference between being carried by every random wave and learning to navigate the ocean of life with a steady hand. And if you think this is just about religious categories, you're wrong. It's about how you interpret reality itself. It's about what you let shape your psychology, your relationships, your destiny. So the invitation is simple but demanding. Cultivate accuracy in your spiritual perception. It will cost you effort, but it will return to you clarity, and clarity is priceless. Perception is a muscle, not a miracle. Most people sit around waiting for clarity to fall on them like lightning, as if understanding is some rare blessing that only a chosen few are allowed to experience. But that's not how life works. Perception is not something you stumble into by accident. It is something you practice, something you build, something you strengthen day by day. Think about it like this. If you never pick up a weight, your body never develops strength. If you never stretch your mind, your thoughts stay stiff and shallow. It is exactly the same with perception. When you look at a person, at a situation, at an opportunity, your mind and your spirit are always reading signals, but the accuracy of what you see depends on how trained you are. Untrained perception is like blurred eyesight. You look, but you don't really see. You listen, but you don't truly hear. That's why some people walk into destructive relationships and say, I never saw it coming. Or they step into fake promises and say, I didn't know better. It's not that the signs weren't there. It's that they never trained themselves to notice. Now think about how an athlete trains. They don't go to the gym once a year. They go daily. They push until their muscles ache because they know pain today builds power tomorrow. Perception is exactly like that. If you want to grow sharp in discerning truth from lies, you need to exercise it daily. Practice listening beyond the words. Practice watching the little signals that others ignore. Practice asking yourself, what's really happening here? What's the motive? What's the essence? What's the unseen reality? Daily life gives endless opportunities to train. You can practice discernment in a conversation with a friend when their tone doesn't match their words. You can practice when you read the news and you ask, what's being left unsaid here? You can practice when someone offers you a deal that looks too good to be true and you pause long enough to think, why am I being rushed? Every moment is a training ground if you choose to treat it as one. There's a story hidden in every face you meet. The truth is never only in the words, it's in the pauses, in the contradictions, in the atmosphere someone carries into a room. But if your perception muscle is weak, you'll miss it. You'll get distracted by charm, by appearance, by noise. And once you miss it, you pay the price. You trust people you shouldn't. You invest energy in places that drain you. You walk past that collapse under your feet. But when your perception is trained, you catch the red flags early. You feel the shift in the air. You recognize the shadow before it becomes a storm. So let me tell you something radical. Don't expect clarity to magically appear. Expect it to grow because you trained for it. Treat every interaction like a workout for your inner sight. When you talk with your family, notice the dynamics. When you sit with a colleague, observe not just what they say, but what they hide. When you face yourself in the mirror, be honest enough to admit the truths you avoid. That's how perception grows strong. And yes, it's uncomfortable. Training always is. Just like lifting weights tears your muscles before it rebuilds them stronger, facing uncomfortable truths tears your illusions before it rebuilds you clear. But discomfort is not your enemy. It is the signal that growth is happening. When you lean into it, you step into a version of yourself that is no longer blind, no longer tossed by every wave, no longer easy to manipulate. Perception is power. Perception is survival. Perception is freedom, but only for those who practice. Every day you can choose blindness or sight. Every day you can either ignore the signals or sharpen your ability to read them. The choice is yours. No miracle will do this for you. The miracle is that you have the ability inside you already, but it becomes real only when you train it like a muscle and refuse to remain weak. Appearance deceives, essence reveals. This is one of the hardest lessons life teaches, because our instincts are often drawn to what looks good on the surface. We are wired to be impressed by the shiny, the loud, the well-packaged. We are quick to trust the person with the smoothest words, the job that pays the biggest salary, the relationship that looks perfect on social media. But time and experience have a way of pulling back the curtain, showing us that appearance is only a mask, and beneath that mask is the essence, the truth, the reality that can either set you free or destroy you if you ignore it. Think about it in terms of food. Junk food often looks colorful, smells tempting, and tastes satisfying in the moment, but its essence is empty calories, harmful chemicals, and slow decay of health. A bowl of fresh vegetables, on the other hand, doesn't shout with glamour, doesn't seduce with bright packaging, but its essence is strength, energy, and long-term vitality. The lesson is clear: what dazzles you instantly is not always what nourishes you deeply. This principle shows up everywhere. How many times have people walked into jobs that looked amazing on paper, only to discover the essence was burnout, toxic culture, and endless anxiety? How many times have people been charmed by someone's looks, charisma, or wealth, only to uncover that behind the attractive exterior was manipulation, emptiness, or cruelty? And yet how many overlooked opportunities appeared ordinary at first, but carried within them the seeds of greatness? The quiet mentor who seemed unimpressive but gave wisdom that shaped an entire future. The small habit of reading daily that didn't look like much but built a life of extraordinary knowledge and confidence. Essence always reveals itself over time, but only to those who have the patience to look beyond appearances. If you live your life only by what impresses you on the surface, you'll be tossed around like a child chasing shiny toys. But if you discipline yourself to seek essence, you build a foundation that doesn't collapse, because essence is truth, and truth does not change when the lights go off or when the crowd disappears. Train yourself to look deeper. When you meet someone, don't just ask, what do they show me? Ask, what energy do they carry? What values drive them? What choices have they made when no one was watching? When you're tempted by an offer, don't just ask, how big is the reward? Ask, what is the real cost behind this promise? When you face a challenge, don't just ask, how painful is this now? Ask, what kind of strength is being formed inside me through this difficulty? Because the essence is always different from the appearance. Life has a way of testing us with this lesson again and again. The easy path often looks appealing but hides chains of regret. The hard path often looks unattractive but hides treasures of resilience and wisdom. Most people choose based on appearance, and then they wonder why they end up in cycles of disappointment. But the few who learn to pause, to peel back the layers, to seek essence instead of glamour, they build lives that are solid, relationships that are real, and legacies that last. Appearance deceives because it speaks to your impatience, to your craving for quick satisfaction. Essence reveals because it speaks to your depth, to your hunger for something lasting. You can choose which voice to follow. If you slow down, if you sharpen your perception, if you dare to ask what lies beneath the surface, you'll stop falling for illusions and start aligning yourself with what truly matters. Essence is not always obvious. It requires discernment, patience, and courage. But once you begin to live by essence, you stop being fooled by masks. You stop wasting energy on hollow promises. You start building a life that is anchored in reality, not fantasy. And that shift, once it happens, changes everything. Truth hides in subtle signals. Most people are too distracted, too rushed, too consumed by noise to ever notice them. We live in a culture that celebrates the loudest voices, the biggest headlines, the flashiest appearances, but reality doesn't always reveal itself through what shouts, it whispers. It hides in the little cracks, the flicker of an eye, the pause in a sentence, the hesitation in a handshake. If you only pay attention to what is obvious, you will miss what is essential. Think about the last time someone told you, I'm fine. The words sounded simple enough, but their eyes looked away, their tone dropped half a note, their shoulders slumped just slightly. If you only listened to the words, you believed the mask. But if you paid attention to the subtle signals, you saw the truth. They were not fine, they were breaking inside. Life is full of these signals, and most people miss them because they're too busy taking everything at face value. In relationships, the truth is rarely spoken outright. Someone may tell you they love you, but the real test is in the consistency of their actions, in the way they treat you when no one is watching, in the respect that lingers in the small gestures. Someone may promise loyalty, but the truth is hidden in the way they look at others when temptation comes. If you don't train yourself to watch these subtle signals, you'll get fooled by pretty words and polished appearances. In business, the same principle applies. A partner may bring you contracts filled with golden promises, but the truth is often in the fine print, in the hesitation when you ask certain questions, in the nervous laugh when accountability is mentioned. A leader may talk endlessly about integrity, but the subtle signal is how they treat the lowest ranked person in the room. The truth always hides in those small details. And in yourself, the signals are there too. You might tell yourself you're happy with your choices, but why do you feel restless at night? Why does your body tighten with stress before you step into that job every morning? You might say you're strong, but why does your mind look for escape the moment silence arrives? Your own subtle signals are telling you the truth about your life. But the question is, do you have the courage to listen? The problem is not that truth is absent. The problem is that most people are too numb to notice it. We've trained ourselves to ignore the whispers because they demand reflection, and reflection can be uncomfortable. It's easier to believe the loud lie than to confront the quiet truth. But here's the paradox: the quiet truth, once noticed, has the power to set you free, while the loud lie, if embraced, will chain you deeper in illusion. So how do you grow in this? You slow down, you practice silence, you start observing not just with your ears but with your eyes, your heart, your intuition. You watch how people's energy shifts when they move from honesty to manipulation. You listen for the contradictions in their stories. You notice when their actions betray their words. This doesn't make you paranoid. It makes you awake. Think of a skilled musician. They don't just hear the melody. They notice the faintest notes in the background, the rhythm that others miss, the little mistake that reveals whether the player is truly skilled or only pretending. That's how perception works in life. If you only listen to the melody, you get entertained. If you pay attention to the subtle signals, you get the truth. And here's the thing: once you start training yourself to notice the subtle signals, you'll never see life the same way again. Conversations that once felt simple will reveal entire worlds of meaning. Environments that once seemed neutral will either feel heavy with deceit or alive with authenticity. Choices that once confused you will become clearer, because the truth is always speaking, not in the roar of the crowd, but in the quiet details that most people overlook. Truth hides in subtle signals, but it is waiting for the eyes that dare to see, the ears that dare to hear, and the heart that dares to acknowledge what others deny. Courage is the price of clarity. Every time you see the truth clearly, there comes a demand to act on it, and that demand is never comfortable. Clarity itself is a gift, but it is also a responsibility, and responsibility is heavy. People think they want to see things as they really are, but the moment truth confronts them, many turn away because they realize it costs courage to live aligned with what they now know. Clarity will strip away illusions, but once the illusions are gone, you can never pretend you don't see. That's the moment courage is required. Think about a relationship that looks fine from the outside. You may see smiles in the photos, kind words exchanged in public, but deep down you know something is broken. Clarity whispers, "This isn't healthy, this isn't real, this is slowly destroying you." But then courage stands at the door and asks, will you act on this truth? Will you confront it, even if it means losing comfort, facing conflict, or stepping into the unknown? Clarity without courage is torment, because you see the reality but remain trapped in it. Only courage transforms clarity into freedom. Look at history and everyday life. People admired for their wisdom were never simply people who understood reality. They were people who acted with courage once they understood it. A worker might see corruption in their workplace, but clarity alone changes nothing. If they lack courage, they stay silent and the corruption grows. A student may realize they are wasting their potential with distractions, but without courage to discipline themselves, that realization fades into regret. A parent may know they are repeating destructive patterns from their own upbringing, but if they don't have the courage to break the cycle, the clarity dies in the face of fear. Life will test you with this principle again and again. You'll see the truth about your habits, your relationships, your environment, and you'll be faced with a decision. Do I have the courage to change, or do I surrender to fear and pretend I don't know what I now know? Clarity will expose the reality, but courage is the price you pay to step into that reality and live authentically. This is why so many people choose the comfort of illusions. It feels easier to live blinded by appearance than to face the raw truth with trembling hands. It feels safer to stay in the familiar prison than to risk stepping into the unknown with courage. But here is the paradox: the illusions will cost you more in the long run. They steal your years, they drain your energy, they chain your soul, and one day you wake up realizing that the comfort you chose was a slow poison. Courage may burn in the moment, but it heals in the long term. Daily life is full of examples. Imagine someone in a toxic friendship. Clarity reveals that this friend doesn't support them, constantly belittles them, uses them. The truth is clear, but cutting off that friendship requires courage. The courage to be lonely for a while, the courage to withstand judgment, the courage to choose self-respect over approval. Or think about someone trapped in a job that crushes their spirit. Clarity tells them they are not living their potential, but courage demands the risk of change, the discomfort of growth, the leap into uncertainty. Courage is not about fearlessness, it is about moving forward, even while fear screams in your ears. Clarity will never remove fear, it only shines light on the path. Courage is what forces your feet to walk it. When you choose courage, you are telling yourself, I value truth more than comfort, I value growth more than safety, I value authenticity more than appearances. That choice changes everything. Clarity without courage is like seeing a door to freedom and refusing to walk through it because the handle feels cold and unfamiliar. Courage without clarity is like running aimlessly, fueled by energy but blind to direction. But when clarity and courage meet, lives are transformed, destinies are rewritten, and chains are broken. Courage is always the price you pay for the privilege of truly seeing. The first layer you must defeat is yourself. This truth is uncomfortable because it points the finger inward, not outward. It is easy to say that others deceive us, that society misleads us, that people wear masks. But the most dangerous and most subtle deception is the one that happens inside your own mind. You tell yourself you are fine when you are not. You tell yourself you will change tomorrow when you know you won't. You convince yourself that the shortcuts, the compromises, the excuses are harmless. But deep down you know they are eating away at your potential. Every human being has an inner dialogue, a private conversation that shapes their choices. This dialogue is not always honest. Sometimes you soothe yourself with lies because the truth feels too heavy to carry. You say, I'm not addicted, I can stop anytime. While your habits hold you hostage, you say, I don't care what people think, but you bend your whole life around their approval. You say, I'm working hard, but deep inside you know you are wasting hours scrolling, escaping. Hiding these lies might protect your comfort for a moment, but in the long run they poison your growth. Think about it like this: if a map you are using is false, you will never arrive at your destination no matter how sincerely you follow it. Self-deception is like carrying a false map. You can pour your energy into moving, but your movement is based on illusion, so you only end up lost. The tragedy is not that people lack ability, it's that they waste their ability because they refuse to confront the lies they tell themselves. Daily life is full of examples. A student says, I still have time, I'll study tomorrow, but tomorrow never comes. An employee says, I hate this job, but I can't leave, even though deep down they have skills and potential to build something better. A person in a broken relationship says, it will fix itself, when every signal points to the need for action. In each case, the first liar is not the teacher, the boss, or the partner. It is the voice within that whispers comfortable illusions. And here's the harsh truth: you cannot conquer the lies outside if you have not conquered the lies inside. What good is it to complain about false leaders, false promises, false systems if your own heart is a house of excuses and denial? The strength to discern begins with the strength to tell yourself the truth, even when it hurts. And yes, it will hurt. Truth always cuts before it heals. But once you break through that first layer of self-deception, something powerful happens. You begin to trust yourself again. You begin to look in the mirror without flinching. You stop needing to maintain a mask because you are no longer hiding from yourself. This creates a foundation of integrity, and integrity gives you power. When you know you are not lying to yourself, your words carry weight, your actions gain consistency, and your perception of others becomes sharper. The people who make the greatest impact in life are not always the most talented, but they are the most honest with themselves first. They know their weaknesses, so they discipline them. They know their strengths, so they cultivate them. They don't waste energy pretending to be something they're not. And because of that, every step they take is grounded in reality. It takes courage to admit I was wrong. It takes strength to confess I am afraid. It takes humility to say I am not where I want to be, but I will start now. These statements may feel like defeats, but in truth they are victories, because they tear down the walls of self-deception. The moment you defeat the liar within, the lies outside lose much of their power over you. Self-honesty is not about beating yourself down, it is about setting yourself free. When you refuse to lie to yourself, you stop living in fantasy and start building in reality. The mirror may show cracks, but at least now you are working with the truth. And only truth can be transformed, only truth can be healed, only truth can grow. Wisdom is calibration. Think of a compass. If it is even slightly misaligned, it can take you hundreds of miles, of course, over time. You may start with only a 1-degree error, but as you keep moving forward, that small miscalibration becomes a massive detour. The same happens in life. Without wisdom, without consistent recalibration, you can pour energy, passion, and effort into your journey and still end up in a place you never wanted to be. Wisdom is what aligns your perception, your decisions, your direction, so that your steps actually lead you toward the life you desire instead of away from it. In daily life, this calibration often comes through reflection, through listening, through exposing yourself to truths that are bigger than your own opinion. People who refuse calibration live in echo chambers of their own voices. They make choices based only on impulse, on emotion, on convenience, and then they wonder why their lives are unstable. Wisdom is not simply knowledge. Knowledge gives you information, but wisdom tells you how to weigh it, when to act on it, and when to ignore it. Take an example from driving. Your car needs alignment from time to time. If the wheels are even slightly off balance, you will start drifting without realizing it. The road may seem fine, the speed may feel right, but over time the imbalance wears out the tires and pulls you into danger. Your life is the same. Wisdom is that regular alignment that prevents you from drifting into destruction. It is the voice that says slow down when you want to rush, or the nudge that says act now when hesitation would cost you everything. Calibration also happens through mentors, through books, through people who see the world differently than you. If you only rely on your own perspective, you will eventually deceive yourself. No one sees the full picture. That is why listening to diverse voices, engaging with challenging ideas, and learning from those who have walked further than you are all part of building wisdom. A musician doesn't just play alone, they tune their instrument against a standard pitch. Without that tuning, no matter how passionate the performance, the music is off. Wisdom is that standard pitch for life. And here is the inspiring part: you don't have to have all the answers today, but you do have to commit to calibration. Every day offers the chance to refine your vision. Every mistake offers the chance to adjust your course. Every conversation offers the chance to see a perspective you missed. The humble person grows in wisdom because they are willing to recalibrate again and again. The arrogant person stays stuck because they insist they are already right, even when their life proves them wrong. Daily life constantly tests your calibration. Someone may insult you, and wisdom helps you weigh whether to respond or stay silent. A new opportunity may appear, and wisdom helps you measure if it is genuine or just a distraction wrapped in glitter. Your emotions may push you to act out of anger or fear, but wisdom calibrates your response so that you don't destroy with a moment of heat what you have built with years of patience. Wisdom does not come in one dramatic revelation. It comes in small, steady corrections. Like a pilot constantly adjusting the plane's course during a flight, you learn to adjust your thoughts, your habits, your relationships. Without those constant adjustments, you may still be flying, but you are not going to land where you intended. The truth is, life will always be noisy. You will always face contradictions, temptations, and pressures. Without calibration, you will drift. With calibration, you may still feel the turbulence, but you will stay on course. Wisdom is not about avoiding challenges. It is about facing them with a compass that points you toward truth. When you calibrate daily, you live with alignment, with clarity, with direction, and that alignment becomes the difference between a wasted journey and a meaningful one. Detachment creates clarity. One of the greatest traps in life is being ruled by unchecked emotions, by storms inside you that blur your vision and cloud your decisions. When you are too attached to how you feel in the moment, you cannot see reality for what it is. Anger distorts it, fear magnifies it, excitement blinds it. The emotion becomes like a fog covering the road, and you keep driving without realizing you are heading straight into danger. Detachment does not mean you stop feeling. It means you stop being enslaved by feelings. It means you learn to step back, to breathe, to separate yourself from the noise of the moment long enough to see clearly what is true. Think about a heated argument. In the heat of anger, words come out that you don't even mean. You exaggerate, you accuse, you throw weapons instead of building bridges. Then later, when the storm comes, you realize most of those words were not the truth, but the product of a mind hijacked by emotion. If in that moment you had detached, even for a few breaths, you would have noticed the signals your body was giving: the rising voice, the clenched fists, the racing heart. Detachment allows you to step outside the wave and say, wait, is this emotion tagging me in the truth, or is it dragging me into blindness? Daily life is full of moments where attachment clouds perception. Someone receives criticism and instantly feels crushed because they are attached to approval. Someone loses money in business and instantly feels worthless because they are attached to material security. Someone gets ignored by a friend and instantly feels abandoned because they are attached to constant validation. Yet when you detach, you start to see these moments differently. Criticism can be a tool for growth. Financial loss can be a lesson in strategy. Silence from a friend can be space rather than rejection. Clarity arrives when attachment no longer dictates interpretation. Imagine water in a glass. If the water is shaken, it becomes muddy and unclear. If you keep shaking it, you will never see through it. But if you place it down and let it settle, the particles sink and the water becomes clear again. Your mind and emotions are like that water. The more you are shaken by attachment, the more unclear your vision becomes. Detachment is putting the glass down, letting the emotions settle, allowing the truth to appear. People often confuse detachment with coldness. They think being detached means not caring. But in reality, detachment allows you to care more effectively. If a doctor panics with every patient's wound, they can't treat anyone. Their calm detachment gives them the clarity to act wisely. In the same way, detachment in your life allows you to face challenges not with panic but with perspective. You can still feel deeply, but you are not consumed. You can still love passionately, but you are not blinded. You can still pursue goals fiercely, but you are not destroyed when obstacles appear. Detachment is freedom. Think about how marketing works. Advertisements are designed to attach you emotionally. They want you to feel incomplete without a product, pressured to buy, desperate to belong. The moment you detach, you start to see through the illusion. You realize that no object, no brand, no possession can define your worth. That clarity breaks the chains of manipulation. The same is true in relationships. Unhealthy attachment says, without this person, I am nothing. Detachment says, I can love you deeply, but my identity is not chained to your approval. Unhealthy attachment says, if people don't agree with me, I am worthless. Detachment says, I can stand in my truth even if I stand alone. Unhealthy attachment says, my happiness depends on everything going my way. Detachment says, I can find peace even when circumstances don't bend to my will. Clarity is the reward of detachment. When you detach, you finally see the motives behind actions, the reality behind appearances, the truth beneath emotions. You are no longer controlled by temporary waves. You can step back, observe, and then choose the response that aligns with wisdom, not impulse. In a world that constantly pulls you in every direction, detachment is the anchor that keeps you steady. Accuracy is a daily responsibility, not a mystical accident. Many people believe that clarity of perception, wisdom in decisions, and accuracy in judgment are gifts that simply fall from the sky, that some people are just born with a special instinct, while others must stumble in confusion. But that belief is dangerous because it allows us to excuse ourselves from the work of sharpening our perception. Accuracy does not arrive by accident. It is cultivated, and it is cultivated through the choices you make every single day. Think of an athlete. The runner who breaks records on the track is not simply blessed with faster legs than everyone else. Behind those seconds of glory is hour upon hour of discipline, training when no one is watching, waking up when the world is still asleep, pushing through pain when it would be easier to stop. Accuracy in perception is no different. If you want to see the truth clearly, if you want to make judgments that are not clouded by illusion or impulse, you must train daily. It is the small acts of discipline, the daily alignment of mind and heart, that prepare you to discern clearly when the big decisions arrive. Picture a musician tuning an instrument. If the strings are slightly off, the whole melody suffers. Accuracy in life works the same way. One degree of distortion, one unchecked bias, one ignored habit of laziness, and your perception is out of tune. Some people go through life playing out off-tune music without ever realizing it, blaming fate or luck when in reality, it was their refusal to tune their instrument each day. Every conversation, every choice, every reflection is an opportunity to bring your inner strings back into harmony, to align your thoughts and motives with clarity. Daily responsibility means you cannot live on yesterday's victories. You may have made a wise decision last year, you may have had a clear vision last week, but accuracy fades if it is not maintained. Think about eyesight. If you neglect it, if you strain it without care, it weakens. Clarity of perception is the same. It demands maintenance. It demands that you test your motives regularly, that you question your assumptions, that you step back from the noise of life to ask yourself, am I seeing this situation clearly, or am I only seeing what I want to see? There is a powerful story in the lives of countless people who chased dreams but lost their way because they treated accuracy as optional. A business leader who ignored warning signs because profits blinded him. A parent who misread the cries of their child because they were too absorbed in their own stress. A young adult who trusted the wrong friend because they never stopped to test intentions. In each case, the lack of daily responsibility in cultivating accuracy led to pain, regret, and wasted years. Yet the reverse is also true. Those who build habits of careful listening, self-examination, and disciplined thought develop a perception that cuts through deception like a sharp blade through fog. Accuracy requires honesty with yourself. How often do we let wishful thinking disguise itself as reality? You want that relationship to work so badly that you ignore the red flags. You want that business deal to succeed so desperately that you pretend the risks don't exist. You want to believe your path is easy, so you lie to yourself about the effort it will take. Daily responsibility means confronting those lies, catching them at the door, refusing to let them color your perception. It is not comfortable, but it is necessary. Everyday life offers you constant training grounds for accuracy. When you hear a rumor, do you repeat it or do you pause and test it? When someone criticizes you, do you lash out or do you weigh the truth in their words? When faced with a decision, do you rush to what feels easiest or do you slow down and evaluate the consequences? These moments may seem small, but they are the practice sessions of discernment. They are the unseen workouts that make you ready for the championship moments of life. Accuracy is not mystical because it follows the law of sowing and reaping. You sow habits of attention, of reflection, of truthfulness, and you reap clarity. You sow carelessness, denial, and laziness, and you reap confusion. The person who wakes up each morning with the intention to see clearly, to act truthfully, to align with reality, will build a track record of accuracy that looks almost miraculous to others. But it is not a miracle, it is responsibility lived out in daily practice. Those who master this truth begin to walk differently. They no longer stumble blindly into the same traps because they train their eyes to spot them. They no longer waste years chasing illusions because they learn to separate the glitter of deception from the glow of authenticity. They no longer let emotions hijack decisions because they practice detachment long enough to respond instead of react. What looks like a gift to the world is in reality the reward of taking daily responsibility for clarity. And now we arrive at the final thought, the place where everything we have explored must come alive inside you, not just as words, not just as ideas, but as a fire that shapes your decisions, your vision, and your destiny. Discerning of spirits, accuracy in perception, the power to see beyond illusion and stand firmly in truth. This is not a luxury, it is survival, it is victory. It is the dividing line between a life wasted in shadows and a life lived in light. Every person here has felt the sting of error, the pain of misplaced trust, the ache of walking down a path that looked golden but ended in dust. That is the consequence of blindness. But the good news is that blindness is not permanent. Clarity can be trained, perception can be sharpened, accuracy can be attained. The question is, will you take responsibility for your own clarity? Or will you keep handing the pen of your story to circumstances, to deceptions, to voices that never had your best interest at heart? Imagine standing at a crossroads in the dead of night. One path looks wide, glowing with false lights, crowded with voices calling you in. The other path looks narrow, quieter, requiring effort and attention. Most rush into the wide road drawn by the noise and the glitter, only to find it ends in emptiness. But the few who pause, the few who discern, the few who look beyond appearances, those are the ones who discover that the narrow, demanding path leads to life, purpose, and peace. Discernment is the lantern you carry on that journey, and accuracy is the oil that keeps the flame alive. The world is not short of voices. Every day you are bombarded by opinions, advertisements, ideologies, manipulations, each one trying to seduce your perception. And if you live without discernment, you will be tossed around like a leaf in the wind, never steady, never free. But when you train your inner vision, you become unshakable. You begin to see through the noise, through the masks, through the distractions. Suddenly you are not a victim of circumstances, you are a master of your direction. The great psychologist Viktor Frankl once said, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. That is discernment in action. Life will throw storms at you, betrayals will come, confusion will knock at your door. But if you cultivate accuracy, you will find within yourself a compass that still points north even when the winds rage. Hear me clearly, greatness is not about avoiding failure. It is about perceiving failure correctly and rising above it. Success is not about luck. It is about seeing opportunities where others only see obstacles. Wisdom is not about having all the answers. It is about asking the right questions with clarity and courage. Some of you need to stop waiting for a miracle and start becoming the miracle by sharpening your perception. Stop blaming the world for lying to you and start training your eyes to spot the lie before it enters your heart. Stop waiting for perfect conditions and start cultivating the clarity to make imperfect conditions serve your growth. Remember these words: the eyes are useless when the mind is blind, and the mind is blind when the heart refuses responsibility. The moment you decide to take responsibility for your clarity, your whole world begins to change. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase. Discernment is what helps you know which staircase to step on. Steve Jobs once said, don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. Discernment is what helps you recognize which voice is truly your own. Gandhi once said, you must be the change you wish to see in the world. Discernment is what ensures that the change you embody is not a reaction to lies but a reflection of truth. Think of an eagle. When the storm comes, other birds hide, but the eagle does not flee. It spreads its wings and rises above the clouds where the skies are clear. That is what happens when you live with discernment. While others panic in confusion, you rise above the noise and see the bigger picture. There will always be people who tell you it cannot be done. There will always be situations that whisper you are not enough. There will always be distractions trying to pull you away from your purpose. But if your perception is sharp, you will hear beyond those lies. You will recognize that every voice of limitation is only as strong as your willingness to believe it. Let this truth sink into your bones. Your destiny is too great to be wasted on deception. Your future is too important to be handed over to blindness. Your calling is too significant to be sabotaged by confusion. So rise up with clarity, step into each day with eyes wide open. Train yourself to discern motives, to question appearances, to listen to the whisper beneath the noise. Let your accuracy in perception become the shield that guards you and the sword that guides you. Remember the words of Nelson Mandela, I never lose. I either win or I learn. When you see life with accurate eyes, there is no defeat, only direction. Remember the words of Winston Churchill, success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. When you discern with clarity, you never stop at shadows. You keep moving toward the light. Remember the words of Muhammad Ali, don't count the days, make the days count. When your perception is sharp, you don't waste time in blindness. You turn each moment into power, and one day, when people look at your life, they will wonder how you always seem to be in the right place at the right time, how you avoided traps that swallowed others, how you made decisions that seemed almost supernatural in their precision. And you will know it was not magic, it was not accident, it was the daily choice to live with discernment, to fight for accuracy, to refuse blindness, and to walk boldly in clarity.